We bring now into the show our good friend Blaine Fowler, BYUtv multi-sport analyst. Blaine, I want to know your pure, unadulterated, unfiltered reaction when you saw BYU and Oregon as a matchup in the NCAA tournament.
Oh, I was pumped. I mean, being a BYU fan, so this isn't my unbiased opinion, I was pumped because I think that BYU could not have had a better first-round matchup in light of the Kyle Collinsworth injury and all of that. I think that this is a team that even without Kyle, BYU has a chance to beat if they play well. So I was pumped. I was really excited, and I was really glad that the NCAA selection committee stuck to the rules that they have and putting BYU into the tournament and also giving them a fair seed. And by the way, what is wrong with Doug Gottlieb? Does he just not like BYU?
Right?
What is that guy's problem?
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, first of all, he's just a grumpy guy and he's a know-it-all. Just so you know, and I don't know what it is. He looks stupid by saying, "I don't think they should be in the field." You don't even think they should be in the field? They were the 39th overall seed. It wasn't even close.
Blaine, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, he's an idiot. So it wasn't even close that they weren't included in the field. And I didn't think they were going to be a 10 seed. I thought they'd be an 11 or a 12. But based on the rules, they talk about not taking injuries into account. You look at BYU's non-conference strength of schedule. You look at their strength of schedule. You look at their overall record. You look at their RPI. You look at their BPI. To me, there was never a question once they got to the finals. And we talked about that for the last couple weeks. If they got to the final and they played Gonzaga, who's a top 30 team, and lost in that final, they would be in the tournament. It would be a matter of seeding. And I thought they might take Kyle's injury into play into the seeding. But for him to come out and say, "I don't even think they belong in the field," and he said it a couple times, I was like, what is wrong with him? He just looks stupid at this point because he's not using any objective measure whatsoever to make that statement.
Blaine Fowler, BYUtv analyst on BYU Sports Nation.
Blaine's fired up to start.
And that's
you
what
came ready to go, man.
You better not get me with Doug Gottlieb right now. I'll tear him up.
Well, he's not the only one. We just talked to head coach Dave Rose, and he brought up the fact that someone had sent him a link to
a couple of people did
an ESPN video with Jay Williams and Digger Phelps. They had the blind resumes going, and it's clear to see that of the three teams on the TV screen, that BYU was hands down the team that had the best resume. And then it revealed that it was BYU, and they both just backpedaled super fast.
Brian Logan would have been proud of that backpedal.
Their argument was the eye test and then the Collinsworth injury. How would you counteract those arguments from those guys?
Well, first of all, the Collinsworth injury, the reward to be in the NCAA tournament is based on the season's body of work. And they take into account a lot of factors. Well, the NCAA selection committee, thank goodness, they use objective measures and they scrub those seeds and do all that over and over again. And to me, the eye test is only a test to maybe change a seeding by one or two. And that's it. Their body of work put them in the tournament. And there's no arguing that whatsoever. It wasn't even close. And so they look stupid and they look biased when they say something otherwise. They were arguing the merits of SMU. Are you kidding me? They're not even close. You know, and so I don't understand the anti-BYU bias from a couple of these guys. Doug, I thought, was the worst. I didn't see the one that Digger. Now, Joe Lunardi did a little piece online, and he said in his, "Hey, I believe they belong in the tournament. I always said that. I was surprised that they weren't in the last four in the play-in. So I don't necessarily agree with their seed. However, I do believe they belong in the tournament." And he said because of the Collinsworth injury, he thought their seed should have been adjusted. So I can buy that one. I can buy what Joe Lunardi is saying, but I can't buy the backpedaling by Digger and just outright they don't belong in the field from Doug Gottlieb. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Blaine Fowler is on BYU Sports Nation. It's scary to think now, what if Kyle Collinsworth isn't hurt? What if BYU beats Gonzaga? Would they have been like an 8 or maybe even a 7? That's crazy. But I want to rewind back to, I believe it was Monday, January 27th. We had you on the phone, and we talked about what BYU needed to do the back nine of conference to put themselves in an at-large position. You said that they needed to probably go 8-1 and get to the title game. Spencer was saying a similar thing. I thought BYU's at-large chances were gone, and boy, do I look like a fool, and I'm so happy that I do. But you were right, Blaine. They finished second. They win 8-1. They get to the title game, and they're in. You saw this coming.
Well, I just knew that they would get rewarded for that preseason schedule, and we were relying a little bit on those teams like Stanford and Texas and Wichita State, these schools to continue to play well, and they did. So those teams held up their part of the bargain, and UMass and all these teams. So you do get rewarded for upgrading the schedule, and I think that's the way it should be. That should be a message that should be sent out. I mean, you look up the road, Utah's got a good record this year, but the preseason schedule was set up for them to just win a bunch of games, and they're going to find they're going to be in the NIT, and that's because of strength of schedule. You have to reward teams for stepping up and playing, and when we looked at that, and we looked at how teams were playing when we talked about it way back when, I knew that they would get rewarded for that if they could just finish strong. Now, they lost a game I didn't think they were going to lose, and they won a game I didn't think they were going to win. I thought that the games they might lose would be the road game at St. Mary's, and I didn't think they'd lose to Pacific. But in the end, it didn't hurt them, that 8-1 record down the stretch and getting to the finals. And also Gonzaga did their part of being the team they lost to in the finals. That helped. I think that BYU would have been hurt had, say, Santa Clara went on a shooting spree and gone and won that tournament and gotten an automatic bid, because then I think Gonzaga would have been a second bid. And even though they don't talk about the number of bids per conference, I think that would have come into play and may have hurt BYU.
National Honor Society member at Elmira Free Academy and BYUtv multi-sport analyst Blaine Fowler on BYU Sports Nation.
The things you learn here.
A lot of people were surprised, obviously, about BYU getting a 10 seed. Then they were extra surprised, including myself, about the rematch with Oregon. Why do you like or dislike the rematch against Oregon?
Well, first I want to take you back to when you started to say a lot of people were surprised. I thought you were going to say a lot of people were surprised to hear just now that you were in the National Honor Society. So I'm glad that that's not what you said.
Is that a 3.75 you needed?
Yeah, but thank you for, you must be reading old bios. Anyhow, the reason I'm excited is because remember when BYU played Oregon in the first meeting, Anson Winder played 1 minute. And BYU was really hurt by their inability to stay in front of Jason Caliste. And he just killed BYU off the bench for 31 points. They couldn't stay in front of him. They couldn't guard him without fouling him. He ends up going 13 for 13 from the free throw line, 7 of 13 from the field. And I think he was the X factor. And BYU also shot very poorly from the free throw line, 61%. They were 22 of 36. To me, if they just are an average team and shoot 72%, that's another 4 free throws, that there's a tie ball game. They turned the ball over 18 times, which resulted in 22 points off of turnovers. So I don't think BYU played particularly well, and I think Anson Winder has been a difference maker defensively against teams that shoot the three like Oregon does. Now, they're the best three-point shooting team in the Pac-12. In fact, they would have been number one in the WCC, very similar in terms of their numbers to Gonzaga and Portland with their three-point field goal percentage. But look what BYU did against those teams the second time around. With Anson Winder out there defending on the perimeter, they've become a better three-point defending team. They've been able to stay in front of teams without fouling quite so much. And so I think he's a big difference maker in this ball game. And even though Collinsworth is out, I do believe that others can pick up the slack in terms of rebounding. Matt Carlino had 11 rebounds in that first game. There's a lot of long rebounds with Oregon shooting all the threes they're shooting. And so guys are going to have to pick it up and step up. But this isn't a big, physical, rebounding basketball team. They're a very average rebounding team. And I think that's where Kyle brings his biggest part of his game. I love his ability to see the floor and dish out assists. But I think other guys are going to have to step up and do that. And so for BYU, I think this is a good matchup. I think they would have been worse off had they been matching up with a team that's really big and physical and goes to the offensive glass and causes you problems there. They would have missed Kyle more. So for a first-round matchup, I love this. Now, I hate the second-round matchup after they beat Oregon and go against Wisconsin without Kyle. That's a whole different story, but we won't worry about that. They get one win, we'll all just celebrate. How about that?
Absolutely, and that one would be in Milwaukee. That would be bad news. That's all great, Blaine, but let's count down to something important as well.
Countdown to Connecticut.
165! Blaine, spring ball football continues. We'll hear from you tonight on True Blue. More on that. We appreciate the time, and thanks for being fired up, coming in here ready to go.
Oh, man, Doug Gottlieb and I better not see him in the next week because we may come to blows.
It's going down. We're going timber.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, see, I was waiting. Hey, Blaine, great to have you with us.
We'll see you on True Blue, Blaine.